Hello there, grateful gangsters. It's Lauren here, the Gratitude Addict. Welcome. Happy New Year. Happy 2022. We've been off for a few weeks, so I hope you all had a great Christmas and Hanukkah, whatever you celebrate, and a very happy New Year. I was supposed to come on last week, and then kind of I don't want to get too into the story because I have a great guest tonight. Toni Bernhard is here with us, who, as you guys know, I'm an Uber fan and friend of, so I don't want to take away her time. But I hit my head basically like 2 hours before showtime. I hit my head on my granite countertop in the kitchen, so I figured I probably shouldn't come on the air. So my episode on living with intention is still to come. So thank you for bearing with me. Prior to that, Kathy Zhang from the Purpose Filter podcast was on right before Christmas. So thank you, Kathy, for being here. It was a wonderful episode, hearing about her work at Bellevue Hospital in New York, dealing with palliative care patients, end of life patients. It was really a meaningful episode if you didn't catch it. I guess I should say welcome to the broadcast. If you are new, I come to you every Thursday night at this time, and I bring on usually an expert guest each week to help us to live our lives of struggle, usually with chronic pain and illness as the main focus, and living lives of purpose, joy, gratitude, and intention. And my guest tonight, Toni Bernhard, has been instrumental, to say the least, in the message that I try to send out to my group on Facebook, Attitude of Gratitude with chronic pain. So it's a real pleasure having her here tonight. Let me quickly just show you what is coming up in our episode. So next week we have we're going to be on at a special time because our guest is from the UK. His name is Gurma Bishaw. He's from an initiative, an organization in the UK called the Gratitude Initiative. Wonderful man. He's an immigrant to the UK from Ethiopia. Incredibly powerful story. He's doing wonderful things with his organization. So I will send out a reminder, but that will be at 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And then sometime during that day also happens to be our group Attitude of Gratitude with Chronic Pain. It's going to be our 7th birthday anniversary. So I'm going to do a private broadcast just for members only if you're a member of the Facebook group. And I haven't quite decided on the time if I'm going to do it before that or after that, but so that's to be determined. The following Thursday, January 20th, I have Kevin Monroe, who's the founder of the Gratitude Encounters. He's doing them with organizations all over the world, trying to create gratitude cultures and organizations, which is super interesting. And then at the end of the month, Mary Beth Sammons, who was supposed to be with us back in December. She's the author of many, many books on gratitude, wonderful stories of gratitude she has to share with us. She had to reschedule for a personal issue, so she's going to be on in January. And I'm actually booked up through April. We've got some amazing guests coming to us. But tonight, so my guest tonight, I'm going to bring her on right now because I am so honored that she's here. We have Toni Bernhard. Hi, Toni.
Hi, everyone. Hi, Lauren.
Thank you so much for being here with us. You know, I share with you quite often. Now we've become friends.
Yes.
But I remember you've been with the group for a very long time. I kind of reached out to you. I don't know if you remember this.
Well, I might as you tell it.
So I was reading your articles, and I don't remember when I first stumbled upon them. So Toni she's written several books, including How to Be Sick, How to Live Well with Chronic Pain and Illness. As you can see, they're well read. I also have them on Audible and Kindle. That's how much I love them. Also, I have a pocket edition of How to Be Sick right here. How to Wake Up is another one. So I was aware of your books, but she also writes for Psychology Today, a wonderful column called Turning Straw into Gold. Yes.
Yeah.
Right. So somehow I stumbled upon your work, and your work living with chronic pain and illness just struck me so deeply because it was the only thing I had read to me that made sense. It was the only thing, like the way you write and you approach chronic pain kind of from a Buddhist philosophy. Yes.
Yeah, I do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So rather than trying to solve my chronic pain, you taught me how to live peacefully, which is always a daily it's a work in progress, but you talk about living peacefully with it.
Yeah.
And that really struck a chord with me so much that, as soon as I remembered your name from the very first article I read of yours.
Yeah, it's a daily challenge.
Yes.
I don't want to suggest that I'm a person of at peace all the time. I every day there's some challenge, and I think that what years of practice help with is intervening sooner when you start to spiral down with stressful stories and um, terrible predictions about the future. Well, who knows the future? You know,
Right.
that kind of thing that it not only is not productive, but leads to unhappiness. And so the sooner you can catch yourself doing that, the sooner you can say, no, that's not helpful. And, you know, if you're left feeling sad about it, there's several things you can do. One is to follow your path, which is to think about what you're grateful for. And the other is to focus on compassion for yourself. Life can be hard. It
Yes.
can be hard for everybody, not
Yes.
just people who are struggling with their health. Yeah.
Right. And now with the pandemic as well, I don't think people with chronic pain and illness have the monopoly on suffering
No,
at this point
no.
any longer. I should also say we like interaction in our broadcast, so please feel free to put in your comments and questions for Toni. So for those of you that don't know Toni was a law professor at University of California, Davis.
I was. It sure seems like another lifetime.
I'm sure.
Yeah.
So you were a law professor, and then you got sick right around the same time that I did. Do you want to talk about how that happened?
Yeah, I actually was very happy being in the classroom because I had done my duty as the dean of students for a while, and being a dean of students for law students is a challenge. That's how I got gray. So I was back in the classroom, and very happily so. And my husband and I took a trip to Paris, which was a big deal for us. We live in California, and our vacations, when we could take one, we went to Hawaii, the 3-hour flight, you know, so, or maybe more. Anyway, we went to Paris, and I got sick, and I actually thought at first it had to be jet lag, but it was clear after a while I had some kind of flu. We just weren't sure. And, you know, at first we thought, well, okay, the 3 weeks will be 2 weeks, or, you know, and the time dwindled down, and I never recovered. That's the short of it.
Yeah.
And of course, when we got back to California, I embarked on, with my doctor's help, seeing specialist after specialist and getting test after test. And they really couldn't come up with anything. But as my doctor said to me when I saw him 2 weeks ago, he said, now we know what happened. It's like COVID, what they're calling now long COVID. They were calling it long haulers. But he said, you know, you got a viral infection 20 years ago, and you're a long hauler.
So did they believe the virus kind of brought out the illness that was already lying dormant in you? Because that's sort of what happened with me, they believe.
Oh, well, I don't think he thinks that, but that's a very common thing, because a lot of childhood viruses, like the measles, for example, a lot of the herpes viruses stay dormant and can be reactivated. So, is it measles or mumps reactivates as shingles? So, right, yeah. So at first, actually, that was one of the theories, and so they did a lot of testing. And no, I think what my doctors have settled on is just that the virus I had affected my immune system, in effect, made it go tilt. And so it reads me as sick, even though it's very likely I don't have a virus a viral process going on right now. I mean, they're not sure, but that's the current theory. It's and so, in the same way that with an autoimmune disease, your immune system reads something that it shouldn't be reading as a foreign agent and starts to attack your
Right.
body. So it's a
Right.
similar kind of thing. That's what they think. And I had one infectious disease doctor tell me, he went over to the light switch in the room. He said, if we could just do a restart, like on a computer, just turn it off, turn your immune system
Control
off,
Alt Delete,
turn it
right?
back on.
Yeah.
And it's kind of a joke with my doctor and me that if I do get a cold or something, he's always hoping that that might fix me in the long run. But
Let's go out and get COVID, Toni.
no,
I'm
I'm not.
kidding. Of course, we do
No
not want
way.
that.
Yeah.
So you got sick on your vacation. That just brought out, and for the past 20 plus years, you've
Yeah.
lived this. Now, you were already practicing Buddhism at that point, yes?
Yeah. I was 10 years into Buddhist practice. And I have to say, I don't practice it as a religion. I
Right.
don't even think about things like reincarnation and transcendent
Right.
states. None of that interests me. And a lot of people think it actually wasn't part of the Buddha's original teachings because he was a man. He wasn't a god of any kind. And
Right.
so he set out a practical path, and it involves a lot of practices like mindfulness and compassion and kindness
Yes.
that you find in lots of other humanitarian or religious traditions. And so, but when I got sick, I actually put all that aside because I was so focused on me,
Right.
me.
Right, which I think a lot of the viewers can probably relate to. You go through a whole process, don't you? Over the years, and in the beginning, you certainly don't say, "Okay, I'm going to come to a place of acceptance. Let's deal with this."
Exactly.
Yeah,
And, there's a lot of self-blame that arises
sure.
at first, as if I don't know, as if it's some defect in your personality that you can't get well. And it's not helped by people who they're well-meaning, but they say things like, "Are you better yet?"
I know.
And, that kind of thing. And
Yeah.
and if you try to describe symptoms and say, I just, in addition to feeling flu-like, I just have so little energy, and people will say, "Well, I don't have much energy
Ugh,
either."
I
You know,
know,
that,
I know.
and then there's the "I don't look sick"
I
comment.
know.
I'm sure
Yeah.
everyone watching has heard at
Yes.
one time or another. And, that has a negative effect on people when they're starting out on this chronic pain or illness path, because you start to question yourself,
Yes.
which is pretty amazing now when I think about it, because I was sick and I was in pain, and yet I was questioning, was I really? What do you mean, was I really? My body's right there telling me you need to take care of me and not be haranguing yourself over the fact that you can't get better. And I mean, some of that I understand, because after a year, I had to give up my profession. I couldn't. My husband would leave work and drive me to the law school, which is about 10 minutes from where I live. I would lie down in my office. I would go teach sitting in a chair, go back and lie down, and then he'd come and bring me home. I'd get into the bed. And part of the reason I did that was that I loved teaching. And the other part was that I just could not believe this was happening to
Right.
me.
Right.
And, both of those are really sad. I mean, this disbelief plus having to give up something you love doing. So
Sure.
there's it's not unusual for people to be in denial. and be in a denial that is not helpful to them, because they need to be focusing on how to make the best of the life they have instead of denying that it's happening. And so this was my way of, I started by saying I had just put all that Buddhist stuff aside. It was like,
Okay.
forget that. I just
Yeah.
want to
You
get better.
didn't, so you didn't think it would be helpful to you at that point because you were just
I
focused
did.
on getting better. Right.
Exactly. All my energy went into getting better. And when I wasn't getting better, it went into a lot of self-blame. And I was helped by one of my, a woman who was I would call her a Buddhist teacher of mine at the time, and now she's a dear friend, Sylvia Borstin, who's written a
Oh, I
couple
know
of,
that name.
yeah, well,
Yeah.
she's written some books that are just very accessible to anybody. It doesn't matter what path you're on.
Right.
And she would call me to see how I was. And she
Aw.
said to me one day, you know, your body's sick, your mind is not sick. And it was like, it was something I was waiting to hear, I think. And it's this light bulb went on that this was the life I had. And I started thinking, well, what if I start now, right now, with this body that is not in the health that I wish it would be in, but this is what I've got. And I started picking up some of my Buddhist books again. And what that did was to inspire me to start writing.
I was going to ask you, how did that come about? So you started practicing your Buddhist philosophy again and found that it was helping you to
I
deal with
found
your
it was
chronic illness?
helping a
Yeah.
lot.
Yeah.
Yeah, because there's, everyone has heard of the Four Noble Truths, but they're often misstated. And so they think of the first noble truth as life is suffering. Well, that's not really what it is. What it is it contains what I like to call the Buddha's list. And what he did was give us a list of unpleasant experiences that everybody is going to confront in life. And on that list are things like aging and grieving and losing what you cherish the most, and getting what you don't want and not getting what you want. And another thing on that list is illness and
Really?
aging. And so I read that and I thought, instead of feeling pessimistic, because people will say, well, Buddhism is pessimistic, I felt like, oh, wow, this guy understands my life. Because whether you're healthy or not, life is, for everybody, is a mixture of pleasant experiences and unpleasant, joys and sorrows. If you just if everyone were to stop and go back on this day you've just been through, there was some unpleasantness, and usually there's some pleasantness. And so it's not a matter of saying, I'm not a positive psychology type, so I'm not going to say, get rid of all that unpleasantness. You can't. What you can do is accept it with grace. And when it arises, be compassionate toward yourself over how hard some of life's challenges can be. I did not sleep well last night. I woke up, I kept falling asleep and waking up in pain. And I would change positions and I'd fall asleep and I'd wake up in pain. And when I then got up in the morning, thankfully, the last 4 hours or so I slept through, I woke up and I didn't feel good. I've had a nap since and I feel a little better. But, the knee-jerk response is to be angry at yourself and angry at the world. Oh, and another thing is to say, it's not fair.
It's not fair. Why me?
Yeah, why me?
Right.
Well, life is just not particularly, life is, maybe it's fair, but it's also going to be unfair. And it doesn't mean that we're just passive doormats. I mean, I'm very much in favor of, first of all, doing everything medically you can to help
Right.
yourself, but understand that some illnesses and pain conditions are really at the limit of medical knowledge. And to be able to accept that and say, okay, I've done what I can for now. Now, what am I going to do with my life? And to work within those limits to find what you can do that will bring some joy, always keeping in mind that not only will there be some unpleasantness, but even that joy is fleeting. You know,
Right.
one of the things that makes us unhappy is that when we're feeling joyful, have you ever had that experience where something is just great and really fun? I remember that eclipse a couple years ago where the moon turned red, and instead of enjoying it, you're saying, how long will it last? Is
You're
it?
so right. Yes.
And right,
So we're not staying in the moment. We can't even enjoy it because we're
exactly.
too busy worrying about when that joy will end, right?
Right, which is something you have no control
Right.
over. And the one thing you do know is that it will end. So
Mhm.
you might as well enjoy it while it's there. And just everyone has their own practices that help them along the way with this. And for me, uh, practicing mindfulness, which I do more outside of meditation than inside. And what I mean outside of meditation is I try to become aware, mindful of what's going on in my mind. You can't control the thoughts that arise. If you've ever tried that, I can't control them, but you can learn to react skillfully and helpfully to them.
Right.
And so you know, when that thought arises, well, how long is this going to last? I like to just kind of laugh at myself and say, well, there you are, not enjoying what's right there because you're so. And if you can start to catch yourself going down that road, I find it incredibly helpful. And it's a daily
It's a
practice.
practice.
And when you blow it, that's okay.
Right. And I
Everybody
think we
knows.
do get hard on ourselves too when people are trying to practice meditation too, your mind naturally wanders, right?
Right.
Especially in the beginning.
Yeah.
And often when we're beginning, we wipe our hands and say, this isn't working, I can't do it. But as you know, I know because you practice it, John Kabat-Zinn says if your mind wanders 100 times, just bring it back 100 times.
Exactly.
Same with gratitude. And I know you talk
Yeah.
in one of your books about metta, which means loving kindness, right? Talks about
Right.
some of the stuff
Well,
you were just talking about, and how it's even if you're not feeling it, practicing it as if it were truth, right? You say something about that in the book, and similar to gratitude, where they say that if you're not
yeah,
necessarily feeling all that grateful, still practice it, and eventually it will come.
absolutely. Metta is one of those words, METTA, that is a Pali word, which was the language of the Buddha. And it gets translated different ways, traditionally loving kindness, but I prefer just kindness, so that we take this love, the idea of love, romantic love is
Mhm.
not part of it. It simply means being nice, being kind, even when you leave the house, which unfortunately we can't do that
Yeah.
much right now. When you put your hand on that doorknob, say to yourself, let me be kind out there in the world. And you can even Sylvia once told me that if she gets to a stop sign, she'll turn and see the driver in the car next to her and say, I hope you're doing well today. Now, this is not the same as have a nice day. Well, it
Right.
is and it isn't. it
It's
has
more
to come from the
intentional,
heart.
right? It's a more intentional statement than the
Yes, it's
knee-jerk,
thanks.
"Have a
It's
nice
a
day,"
much
right?
more intentional statement. Yeah. And so there's another Buddhist practice that is suggests that you find joy, that you rejoice in other people's joy. And I love this practice. It's sometimes called empathetic joy.
Mm.
Uh, it's very, it's a powerful practice for people like me who can't do very much outside of the house. And so I'm always hearing about people who, whether it's going out to dinner or going to Hawaii, which was, I'm in California, that was our favorite haunt.
Mhm.
And I
Seeing on
think I
social
said that.
media people living their lives, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so, uh, there were some of my people I know have gone to Hawaii in the past 6 months when things opened up. And my immediate response is envy. You can even get into resentment,
Mhm.
which is really that it's not fair kind of attitude. How
Mhm.
come the this isn't just? How come they can go and I can't go? Well, I know the reason, right?
Right.
So the idea with this, to get back to the parallel or similarity to gratitude, is that if you practice feeling happy for them because they're having a good time, and they certainly don't want you to be unhappy because
Right.
they're there, they wish you could go. If you practice being happy for them, even if it feels fake at first, the practice will, it's like massaging the mind and the body,
Oh,
and it will become genuine. And I think that is what you're saying about gratitude practice too. And I don't think either one of us are saying that you should force it. It's not like
no.
hitting your head over the hammer. I am
Yeah.
going to feel happy for
Yeah.
them. But to reflect on, well, in this particular case, as I said, reflect on the fact that they certainly wouldn't want you to feel envious. That isn't, they would want you to feel happy for them, and they wish you could go. They wish all the best for you. And
Right.
that makes it easier to wish the best for them. And I find that when I can really arouse that feeling of joy for them, I just feel joyful myself. It's as if
Wonderful.
they're there having fun for me, you know?
And so and even if you were envious or whatever, it's not going to hurt them, it just hurts you, right? So if you're able to
Exactly.
practice that, it benefits you in the long run, right? What did you
Yeah,
say they often call that empathetic joy? Is that what you said?
empathy. It's often called empathetic
Oh,
joy
that's
or
nice.
joy in the joy of
Mhm.
others. And it's just this wonderful antidote to envy, because especially with people in our situation, it's so easy for envy to
Right.
arise. And I think also your gratitude practices help because, for example, if I hear about people, going out for dinner and I can't go. Well, think about what I can do.
Mhm.
Be grateful for what I can do. I can do this, and this is
Yeah.
really lovely. I love being with
You can
you,
do
Lauren.
this. You can do
I can
this.
do that. Right.
And a couple
I wrote
more.
those books.
Mhm.
I'm sitting on my bed right now, and I wrote, this is my laptop. I wrote those books from my bed, and um, it, everyone can everyone can find something, whether it's in the arts or crafts or even just um, taking classes online to improve your just a self-education in that way. I have my daughter started a Facebook page for me that I call my book page. I have a personal page, but I have a book page, and Facebook has them. They're called pages with a capital P. So it's the same thing that like Nike would have, but mine is my book page. But I don't actually use it to advertise my books. Um, I started putting paintings up there.
I've seen them.
Yeah.
They're beautiful. Yeah.
And I didn't know this was going to happen, but it's been an art appreciation course for me
Hmm.
where I have learned so much about art, because when I put a painting up, I want to say who painted it and what country he or she was from and what the date was. And it's been an art education for me. And the same with, I put birds up, and now I know so much more about birds. So
That's amazing. When you
it's
come to
just a
that
little,
place of stopping being so angry and resentful and coming to a place of acceptance for the way things are right at this very moment, right? That kind of
yes.
enables you to explore these things that maybe you never would have explored before.
Yes. And I also think if you, and I don't want this to be taken the wrong way, but if you stop thinking so much about yourself,
Mm-hmm.
um, and when I say not taken the wrong way, I mean that, of course, you want to pay attention to yourself. You want to pay attention to how your body's feeling. Do you need to engage in some self-care? How is your mind? Are you just do you just really have the blues today? Well, that's okay. If you had some things on your to-do list that could be put off till tomorrow, put them off and
Mm-hmm.
just do something silly, a sitcom on TV, a hot
Yep.
bath, whatever works for you. So it's very, when I say not being so self-focused, when I think about this page, for example, on Facebook, I didn't start putting paintings up for me. I put them up because other people like them. And
Mm-hmm.
so I found that when you do things for others, and seems, and that's really my point, that this is such a little thing, but little things are important.
They are.
When you do things for others, you're the one that you also benefit.
Yes.
And at least that's what I've found. And I know
Yeah.
you've found that to be
Yeah.
true.
Today we actually, I forgot to mention this earlier. We hit a milestone of 8,000 members today.
Oh,
Which is
congratulations.
kind of, if you're new to the broadcast, the group is called Attitude of Gratitude with Chronic Pain. What makes us unique is that we're a chronic pain group where you're not allowed to complain. In the
Yeah.
group itself, we offer live chats where you can vent away and do whatever you need to do, but it's really focused on using tools such as mindfulness and gratitude. And, I founded it 7 years ago because I wasn't finding any other groups on Facebook that weren't depressing the heck out of me all the
Yeah.
time. In fact, I think the first time I spoke with you, it was through one of the really, really large chronic pain groups. You had posted an article, and I remember thinking like, oh my gosh, Toni Bernhard's in this group.
Mm.
I was quite starstruck, and I was reading your work. But the groups were kind of, I was finding people were trying to outpain each other.
Yeah.
And we all need to be heard. And talking about our pain is natural and healing, and we must do it. But if that's all we do, is complain and don't focus on a lot of the tools that you're talking about, what kind of a life is that for us? So that's what I
that's
tried to do with the group.
Well, what you do, Lauren, is it's work.
Mhm.
This broadcast doesn't happen on its own. This is something you're doing. You've put work, you put time into it, a time commitment, and into the group. But what you've created has not only it benefits others, but it benefits you too. And I
Yes.
don't mean that in a selfish way,
No,
but
no.
I really think that, and you've talked about intention, that if you set an intention to help others, it boomerangs.
It does.
And if you look at the ways in which you make life worse for yourself, it's often these how you'll take a very simple thought like, I'm in pain today. My pain level is pretty high today. And then you start to spin it out into,
So true.
it's going to be like this forever. I'm never
Yep.
going to have relief. And all of that is, it doesn't help you.
No. Or, even language such as, "This is killing me." It sounds innocent enough, but it really is not. Our self-talk, and I just posted an article of yours from back in 2011 in the group a couple hours ago about the way we speak to ourselves and how important, that is. I'm neglecting our audience here, and I know there's
Okay,
people that
no,
want to
that's
say
fine.
hi.
Go.
You and we could talk for hours. Arlene's here. Hello, Arlene.
Oh,
Linda Edwards is here. Hi, Lauren and Tony. Hello.
hi.
Pamela Creighton. Hello,
Great.
Jill Cook. Thank you guys all for being here. The broadcast is so special with
Oh,
our live
oh,
audience.
I agree with Elizabeth. You have an awesome month lined up.
Thank you. Very, very blessed.
Hi, another Elizabeth. Hi.
How to Be Sick is awesome. I
Oh,
agree.
wonderful.
So,
Wonderful.
so How to Wake Up was your first book, right? And then you
No,
wrote.
How to Be Sick was my first book.
Oh, okay.
And
The first
but
one.
the reason it looks newer is that I did a second
Second
edition.
edition, right? And then
Yeah,
the pocket edition.
well, that's yet another one.
Yeah.
My editor wrote to me about 2 years ago, 3 years ago, and said, "You're probably really tired of that book, but what about doing a little pocket edition?" And I thought, okay,
It's great.
I'll do that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've got it's a
Yeah.
wonderful pocket guide. It was through reading How to Be Sick that things really just clicked for me. And I think that's when I emailed you. We maybe had 100 members in the group, if that.
Oh,
And I
wow.
think it was just kind of a gushing, fan letter of some
Yeah.
kind. And then I remember I was at a football game at my son's college, and you requested to join the group, and I was
Yeah.
flipping out. Toni Bernhard's requesting to join the group. It was incredible.
Oh,
And now you share your articles and your
yeah.
work with us in the group, which we all love so much.
I love your group because, as you said, there's always it's not that we don't need to vent. We do, but I think some compartmentalization is really helpful.
Yeah.
And I have a little thing I do in the evenings where my husband and I have even turned it into a verb. We call it firewalling something. So if I have obviously, okay, well, I'll back up. If I have something up the next day or two, actually, I need a crown in my tooth because I bit on a pretzel and it broke. And I don't like going to the dentist. And so the day before I had to go get the work done, that evening, I just started dreading it. And I thought, well, wait a minute. I know I'm going to get up tomorrow morning and go, right? It's not like I'm not going to go. So firewall it. I put my troubles behind a wall, knowing that come morning, I'll take care of business.
I like that.
And yeah. And so I think in a way, that's really what your Facebook group does. It doesn't say there's not a time and place for venting, but in this particular group that we've firewalled that, and we're going to share the good stuff. Yeah.
And I found that, when for some people we are just like a little oasis that goes along great with whatever other groups you belong to. And I found other groups, for your particular illness or whatever, are so important. I've learned so much from them and all that. So it's not necessarily meant to replace the other ones. It's just a refuge. And I was finding too, when you start comparing your illnesses, it can go a couple different ways. It can be, well, why are they complaining? Because they're not as bad as me. Or it can be, I shouldn't be complaining because I'm not, they're much worse than me. And that's not fair either, because our pain is our pain, and that deserves to be honored and respected just as much as the next person's, So just by taking that off the table in our group and not allowing discussion except in our live chats, it just kind of allows us to work towards trying to, find gratitude and joy and intention. We do mindfulness, exercises each day, and 3 things you did well at the end of the day. It's just
Yeah.
meant to be an extra tool and offer tools. And this broadcast, people like you
You know,
coming on and offering techniques and strategies for us for maybe to, take a couple nuggets here and there and apply to our lives is so
yeah.
helpful.
The internet is wonderful
Mhm.
for people like me who home. I'm home.
Mhm.
I go out to doctor's appointments and that kind of thing. And of course, with the pandemic, I'm really home.
Right.
Um, and so it is a great resource. And I love how it's international. I
Me
get
too.
comments on my book page from, I had someone, a pharmacist in Iraq, ask how she could get my book.
Wow.
So it's really wonderful, but you do have to uh, you have to be smart, and you have to, especially on Facebook. There are so many different groups. Check out a group and see. You have no obligation to join anything. And I had a bout with breast cancer 2014.
Right.
So now it's 7 years ago. And I immediately thought, and I'm okay, I'm fine.
Good.
I went through I did what I was supposed to do, and I'm fine. But I immediately went to Facebook groups, and I found that uh, most of them were not what I wanted.
Yeah.
They just didn't resonate with me. I found a lot of anger, and this is just my own. I'm not telling anybody what will
Sure.
work for them,
Mhm.
but there was a lot of anger. I hate cancer. I hate. And I thought, and this is just personal, but I thought, but this is my body, and it's what
Yes.
happened in my body.
Right.
So I don't hate it. It was something that had to be taken care of, and I
Having
took care of
compassion for it, right, versus looking at it as an enemy. I mean, of course, it
it.
was an enemy, but it was a part of you, so having
Sure.
compassion for it is like having compassion for yourself, right?
I agree
Yeah.
completely. And what I'm trying to tell people is to trust your own judgment.
Mhm.
If you find a group and it doesn't resonate, you're right on. And it
Yeah.
doesn't mean it doesn't resonate for the people in the group.
Right.
But if it's not working for you, don't stay. So in the past 20 years, I've been through a lot of groups,
I bet.
and I
Well,
love
I'm
your.
glad you've stayed with us. We
Yeah.
love you always get such a great response when you post your work,
Great.
in the group, but
Yeah.
that's a really great segue into a question I wanted to ask you regarding setting boundaries,
Mhm.
with people, with things we can do. That's one of the things I love about your work as well, is you're very clear and concise about how we can set boundaries, and for many of us that can be difficult. So how do you go about that?
You know, it is really difficult, and it has to do with really the way we were raised, our conditioning, that uh, whether it's that you're not a good person unless you have a super clean house. I mean, it's amazing what
Yeah.
stuff we learn that has become internalized and may not be wise, may not be compassionate. And so you have to examine everything afresh. And then you have to make adjustments based on what how much energy, how much pain you're in. And um, setting boundaries is an act of self-compassion. And you may wish you didn't have boundaries. I'm not going to lie. I wish I could go to Hawaii. I'll use that example again. But to push myself to do it, and that's maybe not a good example because we tend to be able to, I can't even push myself to do it, but things I could push myself to do, like go to a holiday party, let's say,
Mm,
if we're not in the pandemic, maybe, where I know it's not a good idea, but I don't want to be left out. I don't want to this. I don't want to that. And if you really listen to your body, and if you accept that what you feel you should do may come out of conditioning, lifelong conditioning that may not be serving you well now, you can change. Minds are really flexible. That's what the neuroscientists are telling us. You can, if you can start to change habits that aren't serving you well, you can start today, because nothing is set in stone in the mind. This is just such a wonderful
What do they
thing.
call it? Neuroplasticity, I think, right? Yeah.
Neuroplasticity. Yeah, and people don't realize that. And there is a kind of stubbornness. Well, I was always taught this, and so I'm going to go do that.
Or women are taught to be nice, right? And to
Exactly.
appease people. Yeah.
Yeah. And I never tell people, I'm getting awfully tired. I think I need to get off the phone. That isn't me. Well, maybe you should be questioning that and saying, well, I'm a clean slate. I can create my life any way I want,
right,
internally. So yeah.
So Janice Jones has a wonderful comment. It's so wonderful to see and hear you live. I have read your books and followed you for years. You're communicating so clearly and well. Thank you for using your energy to do this.
Oh,
I could not agree more, Janice, and thank you for being here with us,
so
Toni. An hour's a long time in our world, and it is exhausting. So, I am always so honored when you come on. Jennifer Jacobson. Hi, Toni. So much of our own suffering comes from our inability to accept what is. How do you begin moving your thoughts towards acceptance when you're overwhelmed? Thank you. Thank you, Jennifer.
Yeah. Well, I would suggest two things. I would suggest, first of all, remembering, and I've said this comes from the First Noble Truth, but it really doesn't need to come from there. Remembering that life is a mixture of joys and sorrows, and it's a mixture of getting what we want and not getting what we want. Mm-hmm. There was nothing I wanted more than to continue in my profession. And sometimes not getting what you want can turn out to be a good thing. Look at these books I've written that are helping people. Now, I have to admit, I'd like to wake up well and not be sick tomorrow.
Of course, right.
But still, so there's the first thing I would say about accepting what is to recognize that everybody, even those in perfect health, can't have everything they want. Everyone has, there's my dog barking. Everyone has limitations in life. And so don't think that just because you're struggling with your health, you're different from other people. You really aren't. They may be struggling in relationships. And of course, we're not free from those struggles either. But relationships or work, people have supervisors who are just like a ball and chain. I mean, life can be really hard. And so part of it is accepting that we're just not going to always get what we want, but that's okay. And the reason it's okay is that that's how life is. We don't control. We control so much less than we think we do.
I know. That's a tough pill to swallow. Pun totally intended on that, but letting go of trying to control everything, and recognizing that one of the very few things I can control is just my reaction to things.
Exactly.
And like you said, doing the medical things that the tools that I've learned over the years, but trying to control the outcome of things just led me down a very dark path, alcoholism eventually, down to my rock bottom. So letting go of control, and a lot of us seem to think the same thing. The control thing is a biggie, but such a relief when you're able to get rid of it.
Oh, it's a huge relief when you, and all you can reflect on how little control you have, and that can
Yeah.
help you accept it. You could think about, well, what did I intend when I woke up this morning? What did I think I was going to do? How did I think this day was going to unfold? And then look back on it and see that, there was probably a 20% resemblance.
Yeah.
And being able to I used to be a surfer, so I like to talk about riding those ups and downs without being thrown off the board. And the other thing I would say about starting to move toward acceptance is self-compassion. I'm very much in favor of speaking compassionately to yourself in whatever way works for you. Even I have one of my Buddhist teachers calls herself sweetheart,
Oh, that's
not out
cute.
loud in front of others.
Yeah.
She'll say, "Oh, sweetheart, this day didn't turn out the way you wanted it to."
That's nice.
Oh my gosh.
Putting your hand over your heart is a nice
Oh,
technique
yeah.
too, isn't it? It's
Yeah.
amazing how close you
It's,
can feel to yourself just by putting your hand over your heart when
you
you're
know,
talking.
what it does is it tells you that you care about your suffering.
Yeah.
And that is something you can control.
Right.
You can't get other people to
No.
necessarily to love you or accept you, but you can love and accept yourself. And if you find it hard, again, that's because of conditioning. And if you find it hard, just take a little baby step. Just say, "Oh, today was hard."
Yeah.
Do that.
Yep.
And maybe tomorrow you'll go a little bit further.
And if you go back, it's okay. You can just the next
Right.
day. In attitude of gratitude with chronic pain each morning, they're all optional, of course, but we set daily intentions. And
Good.
we find
Good.
that it's sort of a loose guideline written in pencil for ourselves.
Yeah.
It's something to kind of aim for, but loosey-goosey. And if you don't, it's not strict like a goal or a resolution. Can't
Oh,
stand
yeah.
resolutions because that's just a setup for resentment. Because like you said, with the waves, our conditions ebb and flow. We don't know
Right.
how we're going to be in 5 minutes. I can intend to do the dishes right now, but in 10 minutes, that may be completely off the table. And I don't deserve to be angry for myself for that. So if
Yeah,
you set it as an intention versus a goal,
absolutely.
looks
And
different.
yeah, my pain levels fluctuate with what's going on with the weather.
Yeah.
And so I may be in pretty good shape at one point and then suddenly be in a lot of pain. And I found that the mind works similarly. So, the blues they probably arise out of some condition in your life, but you don't always know what it is. So, when you start to feel blue, just again, "Oh, I'm blue."
I
Well,
like the
that's
sweetheart.
okay.
I
The
like
blues, yeah, that's okay, sweetheart. The
yeah.
blues come and go. And I'm not talking about clinical
Right.
depression. That's
Right.
when the blues feel heavy and stay for weeks at a time.
Right.
I'm talking about these mood fluctuations. There are some days that I just don't feel good mentally.
Yep.
And that's okay. It's okay.
It is okay.
Yeah.
Elaine Reeder says, we want to be happy for another person. After all, we are one. That's beautiful,
Yes,
Elaine.
that's
Thank
beautiful.
you.
Yeah. We're interconnected.
We are. And, if we're just kind to one another, it also helps ourselves, like you said.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Lauren, for bringing Toni to talk with us. And thank you, Toni, for sharing with us. So grateful for both of you. This is going to watch this broadcast
Oh.
over and over. That's wonderful.
Wonderful.
Robin Davis says, if we are easily reprogrammable, why do we cling to unhealthy habits so desperately? How can we get more comfortable challenging beliefs?
Yeah.
Good question.
Well, we cling to unhealthy habits because they've been a lifetime in the making. And I've mentioned this before, but I think people underestimate how much conditioning plays a role in how we think about ourselves and how we think about the world. And it doesn't just come from parents, it comes from teachers, it might come from some friend we idolized. And so just knowing that if you have a habit or if you engage in self-speak that is cruel to yourself, self-blame, those are things you've learned and you can unlearn. And mindfulness helps because in order to unlearn, you have to first see that it's happening. I'm sure all of you have been off in, I call it la la land, off in a la la land of self-blame, and you don't even realize it. And that's one reason why mindfulness can help, because it brings you say, oh, whoa, my goodness, I've been just carried away. Let me stop and follow the sensation of just 3 in and out breaths. In, out, in. I call it 3 breath practice. And it brings you to the present moment and allows you to see, that jag I was on, that really was making me feel bad. And anything you do in your mind that makes you feel bad is not healthy.
No,
And I
it's
don't
not
want
helping. It's
it
making
to be
things
so
worse.
heavy, because I say it's not healthy, but that doesn't mean snap, you can get rid of it.
Right.
But you can start to eat into it. That's why I was saying baby steps. Every time you notice that you're not being kind to yourself and you stop that story, that unkind story, next time it's going to be a little easier because you're changing your habits. And I forget what the second part of that question was, whether I've covered it or not.
I think you did. Let me see. How can we get more comfortable challenging beliefs?
I've become more comfortable challenging beliefs because I feel better when I do. Lauren, you were talking about giving up control, how good that feels. And I feel good when I realize, I was believing that without question. Why is that? We can't control the thoughts that are going to pop into our minds, but we don't have to believe them. So if I have a thought, so I'm in pain. And
you're going to find that as a quote in my group tomorrow. I guarantee you. I love that.
Okay. Okay.
I like that.
And so I'll say it again because it's so important. You can't control the thoughts that pop into your mind, but you don't have to believe them. So, I when I was in a lot of pain this morning, this thought came up, oh, is this my new normal? And, I've had this happen before, that I've woken up in pain, but it doesn't mean I will the next day.
Right.
And so I started to think, oh, this is whatever. And then I thought, no, that's just a thought. The fact that I'm in pain, that's a description of the present moment. But the thought, oh, I guess I'll be this way from now on. You don't have to believe that. That's just a thought. And it makes such a
good point.
It feels good. It feels good to let go of that. Yeah.
Excellent point. Unfortunately we're at the hour already, and I'm so sorry for all of you who ask questions. You're just going to have to come back at some point, Toni. Okay. But I will end on this because it's cute. It's from my mom. I remember you being so excited when Toni joined the group. You were beyond happy. She was at that football game I was at.
Oh, hello, Lauren's mom.
Thank you all so much for being here. Again, this is Toni Bernhard. To find out all about her books, her Facebook page and all that, you can go to her website, ToniBernhard.com.
My daughter made that website for me.
It's a beautiful website. I was just on it again today. Yeah. Toni, thank you so much for being here. You just make so much sense, and you are such a help to thousands and thousands of people. It is truly an honor to have you here.
Oh, I love seeing you, Lauren, and I love chatting with you and having people join in. It's just wonderful.
I like it too. It makes it special that, thank you for the people in the audience. It really does make it special. So thank
Yeah.
you all. I will see you next week. Thank you, Toni Bernhard, and
Bye, everybody.
peace and love, everybody. Thank you.